Hey guys, so I wanted to go over a hand I played today. It's kind of standard, but I still think a lot of people misplay it. I'm at just the light, and I think uh, it's important just to go over like the thought process again. I just like going over these hands. I think it's like important to learn, and also just to see like what you should be doing in certain spots. And I'll go over it with a range calculator this time. So we have ace queen around the button, and this guy makes it 0.6. This is at 20 NL. I've been playing 50 NL lately, but I wanted to play 20 NL also. This player here is pretty much a maniac. He's been playing like almost every hand, bluffing on like every street. I think the only thing that's really not in his range is a like a check raise bluff. He has bluffed rivers, but never like a check raise river bluff. But that doesn't really come into play here. So this is pretty standard. I made it a little bit bigger because I had another player in the hand, but I'm in position. So he goes ahead and call, which I think is pretty standard. So I just wanted to go over the range calculator. So against I put in a 62% range. The reason is because I was using the 62% range for since my trial ran out on Flopzilla. I have to use something like this. As you'll see, this Hold'em simulation does 1 million. What is that? Trillion hands. So these equities are pretty close to anything that you would want. So ace queen, it's good to know against the 62% range has 62% equity. It's not that hard. But let's do the flop. 3 diamonds. Oops, 3 diamonds. Jack of spades, 5 of spades. And here we see our equity goes down to 57%, but I think it's okay. Let's just go along with let's continue the hand. He checks and I bet. I don't know if this is okay all the time. What I wanted to kind of talk about is like what to do on flops like this with hands like this. I think you have to ask yourself, what if he raises me? I mean, you need to think about his range, but if he's able to raise you, what does that raise mean? So if you're betting and he's always raising for value, then I think it's not the greatest spot to bluff. And if he's always raising for bluffs, it's the same thing. I mean, it's okay to if he's always bluff check raising, then it's okay to bet. So you got to really just think about your frequencies, how often you're betting. So, anyways, I think the bet is okay here because of how crazy he's been. I don't really like checking in this specific spot against a maniac player. I'm gonna get value, and I think my ace high is good like all the time. The other thing is I'm holding the ace of spades, so there's a lot of good turn cards there's gonna be a lot of good turn cards anyways. That's the good part about playing a premium hand, is that you just have a lot of playability. So in this spot, like I said, he has not been check raising like at all, and he's actually been folding to some c bets, but where he bluffs is usually on the turns into rivers. So that's why I made the half size pot c bet. I actually think this is a value bet too. I think my ace high is good, and on this board we have 57% equity, so I think it's okay. So he calls, and the turns to 7 is pretty much a blank. I think it's okay to check this one back. as I do. There's nothing really much to be said. If this is a spade, I think I just bet. If it's anything that connects the jack, like if it's the 10, if it's a king, I think I bet again, just for my range. But this 7 is better for his range than mine. It's a blank, but I think the best play is to just check it back here. And the 7 comes on the end, and he goes ahead and he bets half. So let's think about what we've been saying. So he has a 62% range, but I think the range kind of goes lower. I think he's only continuing with like all his spade draws. This is why I wish I had like a real calculator. So like, let me bring up Flopzilla. So in Flopzilla, I'm going to go ahead and give him a 60% range, and then I'm going to go on from there. So we have the ace of spades and the queen of diamonds. So like I said, this is like rough estimate of the equities. You have to remember, like, he has all these hands in here. This is kind of a similar spot as before. And so since he has all these hands in here that are gonna, I mean all these hands in here, all the suited hands, like even though he has the jacks, let's actually construct his range this time. So I think a jack, I think he could slow play pocket jacks here. I think he might raise on the flop. So I'm gonna discount pocket jacks. So I think he has. I'm gonna do a little bit of a range while we wait. Here's the range that I kind of am giving him. It's a rough estimate, and it's not that precise. I think it's okay to not be overly precise, especially it would be very tedious for me to like make a video and really get into like the range and on each street. Plus I have just this trial version, which I do plan on buying because I can't do a flop here and like get equity and get the equities on the flop. But let's just say like this is a 29% range. Let's just type it in. Let's type in a 29% range on 7 of hearts, 7 of diamonds run out. I still have 50. It's about a 50-50 percent equity. I actually think that I have more equity. This, like I said, this range calculator is not like super precise, but let's think about it this way. I have 50% equity. He bets half the pot. So now I'm getting 3-to-1 pot odds. So I actually have the odds to call. Because if you think about it this way, if I lose, if I only need to be right 1 in 3 times. So if I'm wrong only once out of the 3 times, that's fine. Because in the long run, this is a profitable call if I have 50% equity. Do you see how the math works? So I'm getting 3-to-1, which means I only need to be right 1/3 of the time, but I have 50% equity. So it levels out to being sort of it's a profitable call in the long run. So I do make the call, and he has ace deuce, which is absolutely just crazy. I don't even understand it. Why he's not at least raising or check raising flop or something. I mean, he has the inside straight draw with he needed a 4, but if you're gonna just continue with a hand like that, the river's not the place to bet to bluff. You probably want to bluff the flop. I mean, especially if you see me c-betting too much, it just makes no sense. But I just want to like really instill like the math on the with the pot odds on the river. I only need to be one out of every 3 times. But my hand strength is strong enough that I'm right, that I have half of the equity of the pot. So it's a profitable play in the long run. The point is that you have to look at your pot odds and you have to see how how good you are all the time. Yes, he has sevens and jacks and fives and threes in his range, but he also has so many other bluff cards too. And with a 50% equity, you should just make this call. And like, yeah, he'll show up with something stupid, and I don't really think you can bluff here because your story doesn't make any sense. Checking the turn, raising a river, it doesn't really make any sense. He could call you. I mean, I guess it's very polarized, but the fact of the matter is, you have to calculate your pot odds and go with it. If he shows up with with ace 3, so be it. It's a profitable play in the long run. Thanks, guys. I hope you learned something. I wish I was better at the mathematical side of poker. It's always been my weakest suit. It's always been my weakest part of poker. But the thing is that I understand the math, and I have a lot of it memorized, and I have a lot of the spots memorized in my head about the math. And so I know, like in this spot, I know I'm good here. I know I should call here. Can I give you the math off the top of my head? No. Like I said, the math isn't my strong suit. But you have to understand that I did a lot of work off the table, and when it comes to understanding what to do in a certain spot, I just know what to do because I've went over the math so many times that I've memorized the math. I don't calculate the math on the spot, but I've memorized it. So that's what you got to do. You got to do a lot of work off the felt. You have to do tons of work. I can't even stress how much studying you have to do for poker. People say you should study twice to 3 times as much than you play, and that's a lot. So, anyways, I think this hand is pretty interesting. It's pretty standard, calling down with ace high. Hope you learned something. A little bit rambly at the end. I'm sorry, guys, but thank you for listening. I'll see you next time.